wanted to have an open discussion, Mr. Lanman, and of course anyone in the chat below as well. I've been kind of diving into this story relatively as it's been happening. So if you're tuning into the show for the first time, you have to know that I'm a big fan of the CW verse, where it's all things DC Comics, shows like The Flash and Arrow and Supergirl and Black Lightning and Batwoman and the upcoming Naomi series, Superman and Lois, all of these awesome shows. I'm such a big fan. I'm finally catching up on them after taking a break this past year. And we did talk about this a little bit when it happened around the middle of the pandemic, around 2020, when I had finished catching up on Batwoman for the season. And spoiler-ish warning if you haven't already known, but I also kind of feel like I'm the only person watching this stuff, so I mean, it's whatever. When they unveiled the face of Bruce Wayne, when they unveiled what Bruce Wayne looks like in this universe on television, this DC universe on television. And I was so excited after seeing the finale. Even though they hadn't finished filming every episode that they wanted to for the season, I was excited to get to this point in the story of like, all right, where are we going next? And then I go online to try to find out where we could be going into the story, because I knew I was a few weeks behind after the season finale had aired. And I find out that the day before I had watched the season finale, Ruby Rose, who was the title character of Batwoman, quit the show. So all of a sudden, this knowledge of like where the season's gonna go next, that was no longer the conversation. Where the hell was this show gonna go next when Ruby Rose was leaving Batwoman after signing on to do the show? And we had talked about how I had defended the portrayal of the character because I thought it was actually pretty accurate, all things considered, and I was here for, stepping away for not feeling that the role was right for her, mental health-wise. I was supportive of that. Since then, there have been new developments that have gone on in the story, and this is kind of old news, but I'm catching up on it. I'm sharing this with y'all for the first time, so we'll act like it's news together.
Say, did she quit or was she pushed?
She kind of pushed herself out, to tell you the truth, because now it comes out that she was apparently kind of a nightmare on set to work with. Now, granted, she was...
Allegedly.
She was injured on set while doing stunt work for the show, and that was kind of the catalyst for her also to consider the idea of, like, this isn't for me and I need to get out. But there have since been co-stars, one notable co-star being the character of Luke Fox, who goes by Batwing on the show Batwoman. He has since come out and said, you have to do a lot to get fired from your own show. And he feels that that is exactly what happened with Ruby Rose departing Batwoman before being replaced by Javicia Leslie, who is the new Batwoman on the show, and she's actually been doing a really remarkable job, in my opinion. I think she actually has helped the show continue up to this point. I'm not sure if Batwoman honestly would have lasted with Ruby Rose in the role, but that is honestly neither here or there in this case. And seeing this story develop, now Ruby Rose is at a point where like she's fleeing back to her home continent of Australia, and taking a break from Hollywood, which is fine. That's her own prerogative to do. And hearing the story from a PA that worked on Batwoman, he had said, I'm actually not sure of the gender, to tell you the truth, so I'll say they for the sake of conversation. They had said that he had gotten a wrong coffee order for her. No, what was it? I didn't do any of the research. Like I said, it's been a day. Oh, yeah, so like there was food and she wasn't happy with it, and basically she treated him like shit. That's the report that the PA gave. And just that this was the PA's first introduction to like the world of, television and Hollywood and all that stuff, and they were almost ready to quit because they were just so emotionally distraught from this interaction that they had with Ruby Rose.
She was being a bit of a diva, to put it lightly.
Yes. And I think it's the point that I'm trying to get to with all of this rambling and mumbling is I don't think we live in a world anymore where we're going to put up with toxic work environments, and we shouldn't. And I'll give another more recent example. I'm about to talk football here, and everyone in the audience is going to go, not football. I'll keep it brief, I promise. So recently,
Save it for Sports Ball Minute.
well, well, okay,
I'm joking.
tune into to the YDD show every Monday live at 5 for Sports Ball Minute. We'll deep dive even more. So a coach in the NFL, head coach in the NFL, Urban Meyer, was fired this past week after reports of him kicking a kicker while a kicker was stretching and criticizing him for not making his field goal kicks in the preseason. He's also reportedly threatened his coaches with not immediately winning and turning things around. And mind you, this was at the start of the preseason back in August when the games don't even count. He benched one of his best players, and everyone in the locker room says, "Why would you bench our or our second best player, our best running back, more specifically?" And just creating this toxic work environment that carried from college into the professional leagues, where okay, you can get away with yelling at these kids, but even though you shouldn't, but you're not going to get away with yelling at these adults. My point with all of this is I've been taking a look at kind of just, toxic work environment and seeing it be played out in the world of social media where everyone can have more of a voice in these things. And I've never necessarily had to go through that personally when I was working at Chuck E. Cheese before, obviously, the pandemic forced me to be let go. It just makes you think, and it makes you wonder, why did we put up with this stuff for so long? I think having social media and giving everyone a voice has helped start to fizzle out these toxic work environments.
It's just same with a lot of things. It's hard to keep this kind of stuff under wraps now. General abusive behavior in any situation is much harder to keep hidden.
Definitely,
which is good.
They just had this just popped into my head too. The show The Goldbergs on ABC, their lead star just got let go this past week. Jeff, I can't remember his name, but he's basically the lead dad on the show, and they just let him go because it became too much of a toxic work environment. He was too verbally abusive on the show, and he's been on for the last 9 seasons since the beginning. And especially in Hollywood too, you're sick and tired of hearing these diva stories. People are not going to put up with it anymore because we will call you out on it. And in the specific, and how it specifically relates to a lot of what we talk about on the show with superheroes and do-gooders and crime fighters, I understand as an actor that it is important to separate yourself from the characters that you play on screen, whether it's film or long eras of television. Say if you're doing a show for 12 years like The Big Bang Theory, Jim Parsons, would probably try to do everything he can internally to separate himself from Sheldon Cooper, even though he's still technically being Sheldon Cooper on Young Sheldon via narration, but you get my point. And as Ruby Rose is playing the character of a superhero, I understand separation as an actor, but how do you not look at these scripts and go, I should try to be a little bit like the superhero and not the polar opposite and just act like a supervillain to everyone and bow down to me? Now, of course, all of this stuff is, reports and allegations
that's why I
and
said
stuff.
allegedly, you really have to be careful because you don't know who's got it in for who behind the scenes, etc. But as far as I believe the victim sort of a situation, it's hard to say.
There is a trend in the overall workplace across all things, specifically Hollywood, because people are more keen on having a voice. I mean, look at what happened with the Ellen Show alone, and all of that. People are more keen to just speak out about problems that they have in these kinds of situations. And it's just amazing to watch that people are sticking up for themselves, and I think it's great. I just find it more amazing that something like this, in fact, happened on a superhero show, that it got to this point where it feels like it was just not a good environment.
Yeah, and maybe that was, if it wasn't a good environment for her, maybe it got to the point where that was reflecting, and she did, to her credit, remove herself from that situation.
Absolutely, yes.
Instead of continuing with it. So, I think we can give her some credit for that. And I'm sure if she was involved in that behavior, I'm sure she feels at the very least regretful and hopefully apologetic.
Absolutely. It's not, by no means am I intentionally trying to shame Ruby Rose in this particular case,
No.
because for the record, I still stand by that the first season of Batwoman I thought was a success, and I thought it was good television, and that will always.
She was great in Orange Is the New Black.
Yeah, that was what got her to Batwoman. You know,
Yeah.
that was her catalyst as far as being here in the States. It's just really unfortunate that it got to that. It's unfortunate that these kinds of things keep happening in Hollywood. It's unfortunate that these kinds of things keep happening in the general workplace.
But maybe that is a symptom of us fixing it. You know?
Yes.
Like you can't fix a cut without it scabbing over, and that's like itchy and irritating. But to continue the analogy far too far. But in the same way, you know, as society, for us to heal, for us to progress, it can be difficult, and it can be you know, weeding out the stuff that we don't want, which is just as important as encouraging the behavior that we do want, and but it's just not as pleasant.
Yeah, I feel like change is never easy.
No,
it can be painful in a lot of ways. God only knows that the world.
It can be scary too.
The world is going through all of this change, and it's probably not going to stop for a while for
or ever.
All kinds of reasons that we do not have time to cover in this show
until we
this
become the singularity.
Yeah, we are one. Like the little
Borg
green Martians from like
Toy
Story. Yeah,
yeah. The claw. He chooses who stays and who goes.
All right, that's a great place to end
it.
Whoa. Welcome to the end of the Knights of the Dirty Table video that you just watched. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to our channel, like our video, share with all your friends, and catch our live stream every Friday live at 5 only on the Zenden Studios Twitch channel. I gotta go wander off into space. See ya! Whoa! Whoa!